You probably think you know the stories of World War II, the great battles, the famous generals, the good guys versus the bad guys. But I guarantee you have never heard a story like this one, because in the final, chaotic hours of the war, something happened that sounds like it was ripped from a Hollywood script. It's a battle that had American GIs, German soldiers, and even an SS officer all fighting on the same side. This isn't just some weird historical footnote. This is a story that shows you what happens when all the rules just disappear. But let's make that a little more personal, shall we? What would it take for you to risk your life for someone you were trained to see as the enemy, someone you were trying to kill just the day before? It's a question that gets right to the heart of what loyalty and courage even mean. And the answer, found in the true story of what happened at Castle Itter, might just change how you see the lines we draw between us and them.
So picture this. It's May 4th, 1945. Hitler has been dead for 4 days. The entire Third Reich is crumbling. But for a small group of people trapped in a medieval castle in the Austrian Alps, the war isn't over. Not by a long shot. In fact, their most desperate fight for survival is just about to begin.
To really understand how unbelievable this battle was, you first have to understand the prize they were fighting for. This whole story unfolds at Castle Itter, a remote, imposing fortress that the Nazis had turned into a very, very special kind of prison. This wasn't just a castle, it was a pressure cooker, filled with the shattered leadership of an entire nation. For most of its life, Castle Itter was, just a fortress. Then it became a fancy hotel. But in 1943, that all changed on the direct order of the head of the SS, Heinrich Himmler himself. He looked at this place and didn't see a hotel, he saw the perfect gilded cage. His plan? To round up France's most important political figures and keep them there as high-value hostages, bargaining chips for a peace deal he was dreaming of. A deal that was never going to happen. And what a collection of prisoners he got. I mean, this was a who's who of the fallen French government. And here's the kicker, they despised each other. You had two former prime ministers, Daladier and Reynaud, who spent all day blaming each other for the fall of France. You had two top generals, Gamelin and Weygand, who were bitter, bitter rivals. Even Charles de Gaulle's own sister was there. Now, you'd think being in prison together might unite them, right? Nope. They were so filled with hate, they literally ate at separate tables. They were this fractured, bickering group of egos, totally oblivious to the fact that they'd soon have to trust one another with their lives. Okay, so Hitler dies on April 30th. The entire Nazi chain of command just shatters. For most people, this means the war is finally ending. But for the prisoners at Castle Itter, this news turns their situation from just bad to absolutely terrifying. The collapse of order created a power vacuum, and something much, much worse was rushing in to fill it. So here's the critical moment. The regular SS guards at the castle hear that their Führer is dead, and they panic. They abandon their posts and just run for the hills. All of a sudden, the prisoners are in charge of the castle. For one brief moment, they're free. But this freedom, it's a death trap. Because the woods all around them are crawling with fanatical Waffen-SS troops who've been given one last chilling order. Execute all high-profile prisoners. Their freedom has just become a death sentence. Can you just imagine the sheer terror of that moment? You're completely isolated, you've got a couple of rifles the guards left behind, and you know that out there, in the dark, hundreds of the most brutal soldiers in the world are on their way to kill you. The official armies are miles away. The world is in chaos. You can't just call for help. You have to pray for a hero. Their first attempt was an act of just unbelievable bravery. A Yugoslav handyman and resistance fighter named Zvonimir Chuchkovic hiked 64 kilometers, that's 40 miles, through enemy territory and actually found an American unit. He did it. Help was on the way. And then bureaucracy struck. The American Rescue Column was ordered to stop because of some jurisdictional nonsense between two different divisions. Can you believe it? With time running out, they send a second man, the castle's cook, Andreas Krobat. He gets on a bicycle and pedals like mad towards the nearest town, knowing it's full of Nazis. And this is the moment the story goes from a desperate escape thriller to something truly legendary. Krobat's bike ride leads him to the one man who could possibly bridge the gap between these two warring worlds. What happens next sounds like something a screenwriter made up, but I promise you, it is documented history. Krobat finds a German army officer, a Wehrmacht Major named Josef Gangl, and this meeting is everything. On one side, you've got Captain Jack Lee, a battle-hardened American tanker who's been fighting Germans for months. His job is to defeat the German army.
On the other side, you've got Major Gang, a decorated German soldier who fought on the Eastern Front. By every single rule of war, these two men were supposed to be trying to kill each other. But instead, they were about to become brothers in arms.
So what happened to Major Gang? Why would he do this? He wasn't some lifelong political dissident. He was a career soldier. But he had finally seen that the Nazi regime was destroying his country. The last straw was a direct order for the SS to execute civilians in any town that tried to surrender. Gangl just couldn't do it. He refused the order, gathered his loyal men, and joined the local Austrian resistance. He had already chosen his side, and it was the side of humanity. So Major Gangl, carrying a white flag, walks up to Captain Lee and explains this absolutely insane situation. Now, Lee had a choice. The war was basically over. This was a completely unauthorized mission, deep in enemy territory, all based on the word of a German officer. But the sources are crystal clear on what happened next. Without a moment's hesitation, Lee got on the radio and volunteered to lead the rescue mission himself. It was a gut decision, based on character, not the rulebook.
Now let's just take a second to look at the force Lee put together, because this is where reality just gets completely bizarre. Look at this list. You've got a small handful of American GIs, about a dozen German soldiers still in their Wehrmacht uniforms, a defecting SS captain who also decided to protect the prisoners, the French politicians now armed with rifles, and a few local resistance guys. This wasn't an army. This was a patchwork crew of total strangers and former enemies, united for one single purpose: hold that castle.
So, the stage is set. Inside the castle, this unbelievable crew gets ready. An American GI is literally showing a German soldier how to use his rifle. A French politician is setting up a firing position right next to them, and outside, in the misty morning of May 5th, the Waffen-SS are getting into position. The strangest battle of World War II is about to begin. This is the total number of defenders, about 40 people, and that number includes the elderly politicians and a tennis player, a tiny, tiny force. And this is who they were facing: around 150 battle-hardened, fanatical Waffen-SS troops, armed with machine guns, mortars, and anti-tank cannons. The odds weren't just bad, they were impossible. Captain Lee was a tanker, so he played his one big card. He drove his single Sherman tank, Besotten Jenny, right into the main gate, essentially turning it into a 30-ton steel wall. And up on the ancient battlements, the impossible was happening. American and German soldiers shouting warnings to each other in different languages, pointing out targets, fighting and dying side by side against the SS. But then the SS brought up their ace, a dreaded 88mm anti-tank gun. One shot ripped through the Sherman, knocking it out of the fight. The gate was exposed. Right then, Major Gangl saw the former French Prime Minister Paul Reynaud standing near a window. He ran to push him to safety, and in that exact instant, a sniper's bullet hit him. The German officer who started this alliance died saving the life of a French leader. Their strange brotherhood was now sealed in blood. Their ammo was almost gone. The end was coming. And in that moment of total desperation, the most unlikely hero of all stepped up. Jean Barotra, the 46-year-old Wimbledon champion, volunteered for a suicide run. He was going to climb over the castle wall and sprint across open ground to find the American reinforcements he hoped were nearby. Using the same agility that made him famous on the court, he vaulted the wall, landed, and ran for his life through a storm of machine gun fire. It's insane, but he did it. Miraculously, he made it through. Barotra's insane, heroic run saved every single one of them. American tanks came roaring up the road just as the SS were about to make their final push. The battle was won. But the real story here isn't about who won or lost that day. It's about the powerful lesson that was forged in the fire of that battle, a lesson that would echo for decades to come. Now check this out. This is from the official U.S. Army citation for Captain Lee's Distinguished Service Cross. That's America's second highest medal for valor. Read that line again. Organized a defense with both American and German troops. The Army didn't try to hide this. They celebrated it. They officially recognized that on that day, true courage meant fighting alongside your sworn enemy for something more important. And the legacies from that day are so powerful. Captain Lee was decorated a hero. Major Josef Gangl is revered as a national hero in Austria today. There's a street named after him. He's a symbol of the soldier who chose his conscience over his orders. And the French prisoners? They went back and helped rebuild their country, and many became architects of post-war European cooperation. Having seen mortal enemies unite to save them, they carried that lesson forward, helping build the Franco-German partnership that would have seemed absolutely impossible just years before. And that brings it all right back to us, doesn't it?
The story of Castle Itter is so much more than just a cool war story. It's a challenge. It forces us to ask ourselves, is our ultimate loyalty to a flag, to a uniform, to a political party, or is it to our shared humanity that lies underneath all of those labels? On one insane day in May of 1945, a small group of very different people decided their loyalty was simply to each other. And their choice proves that even in the absolute darkest of times, our common humanity might just be the most powerful weapon we have.